Bukiwe Pantshi. I currently work as a principal transactor in the Nedbank's mining finance team. And thanks to the GSSA for the opportunity and platform to share about what I do. And it was interesting to hear at the end of Sarah's presentation, touching really on what I do and the constraints that are out there in the industry, that if there isn't much exploration, really the world at large will be affected. So there needs to be a way to encourage exploration, even touching on the African part of developing projects, actually as Africans, not relying on majors. Okay, I'll just get back to my presentation. I'll start on just giving a background on who I am, where my geology journey started. Next one, Sarah. I studied geology at Wits, and I took an option of the advanced earth sciences, and I was an Anglo buzzer. So after graduation, I started working in Klein-Kopi, what used to be called Klein-Kopi then, holding different roles. And when I left, I was a staff geologist in the central services, where we provided services to operations for grade control of exploration program purposes, and also looking at the new pipeline for Anglo Coal. And I moved to Randgold, where I was a project geologist, and my role was to look through a portfolio of assets that they had and try to see what can be done with that. Either you sell or you form a joint venture with another company that can spend. One of the companies we had a JV with was Rio Tinto on our diamond assets. I left Randgold, moved to Impala for a position in the geostatistics department. And after that, I moved to Centula Mining. Centula used to look at coal, or it was rather a mining company that had a mandate to establish itself in the coal mining space. They had assets in South Africa. Some of my projects were in Mozambique and also in Zambia. And I left them in 2012 to join Nedbank. I think that's where my presentation really will touch on what I did at Nedbank as a geologist. And in the process, in the last 23 years or so, what I did an MSc after my honors in geology, MBL, and then MBA at some point when I was at Nedbank. Yes. What is important for me here, I think, is to touch on or just give a brief overview of what mining finance is and also where geologists fit in. Because I would hear people sometimes saying we're losing people in the industry to the banks. In some of the cases, it is not a loss. It's a value add in a broader system where the mining companies also participate. So in simple terms, mining finance is financing of mining companies, be it for their corporate requirements, for project development, or any other development or any spending they need or expenditure they need on their operations. And it comes through debt, where most banks come in, especially Nedbank, our team. We lend as the debt, we use the debt instrument. There are other institutions that will put in equity, that is put in money in exchange for a stake in the company. And that usually works in many situations, like if you're dealing with a streaming company that will also take the product, or just a pure equity play. And the skills that are required, I'll speak for the mining team, but I've seen with other banks as well. Most mining finance institutions, they value a diverse skill set within their teams. In my team, we have CAs, we have a geologist, we've had geologists before, we have an engineer, we have a lawyer. And all these skill sets are important in our process when we are processing funding requirements. For those that do not have a finance background or a finance qualification, it is recommended that a person gets some qualification at some point. That can be in a form of a CFA, which most banks value, and it's done part-time. And it can be or an MBA for broader management and also a financial skill. And the environment that we find ourselves in when you're working in mining finance, you spend most of the time in a corporate office, but in most cases, you are talking to clients every day, you're engaging with mining companies, with senior management from mining companies or any other level, depending on the project that you are dealing with or you're working on. And you get to do site visits. In most cases, I mean, you do multiple site visits per annum. It could be local, or it could be in continental Africa, or in any other country, Canada or Australia, depending on where your clients are based. And now the important point, where does geology fit in? Mines, they mine resources. And what we do is we fund using the underlying asset that dictates the life of a mine. If a mine does not have enough resources, they're looking for a funding for about 5 years and their life of mine is 3 years. That will not go anywhere. That funding will not even be considered. So resources are very important, which puts me in a position or to have a view that says having a geologist or an internal technical expert in a mining finance team is a competitive advantage. What happens is that when we get a funding requirement, it doesn't only come to one bank. And in that process, the number one item that need to be ticked are the technicals of the project that requires funding. And that's where internal technical people come into play, because as Nedbank, we can review funding requests at speed and respond to the client whether we'll consider them or not, depending on the viability technically. And having a geologist is also very important because geologists understand the entire value chain in a mining company. You'll have one geologist, but the person can give an opinion of view, starting from exploration, from how resources and reserves were compiled, and moving on actually to mining. When it comes to talking about mining methods, we know about that. When it comes to processing, we also know about that. So a geologist is one of the most important people that can be part of a mining finance team. And some people will ask, what about commodities? I've worked in coal only. What about other commodities? Mining finance is also a platform where you can learn more about other commodities. The principles are the same. Everything goes through exploration, and there's resources and reserves. And then there's mining. You just have to fill the gap and actually read and learn and talk to people and go to courses that will upgrade you if it's something that's totally out or difficult to understand. Okay, when I joined Nedbank in 2012, the role I had was that to offer principal in a technical team, the team that is within the mining finance team. And that role, if I just give you a broader overview of it, it is client facing. That means every day you deal with clients externally or within Nedbank. And what it does really, it gives technical support to the mining team. And what happens when we receive a funding request from a mining company, the first document or information that we need to review is technical information. And it might come in a comprehensive technical report, or as we prefer, a bankable feasibility study. And the person that is in that role, what I used to do, and the current person that is in that role, what they do, they review the contents of the document. I mean, going through everything, all the technicals, the geology, mining, engineering, everything that is in there, and give us an opinion or whether technically it ticks all the boxes. And only after that, the request can move forward for financial valuation, whether the mining of that asset can actually be economic. And that's when we can only do that after technically the report has been given or not. And what happens after that is the technical person who deal a lot with external consultants, because in most projects or most financings will be dealing with other banks, where we'll have to appoint an external person or external consultant that will have to verify all the technicalities of the project and also technical information, and also be part of the project until if it is commissioned, if it is a project, a new development. Or if it's just a corporate land, but we need technical reports, we'll just get an external company or the likes of SRK to help us look through the technicals and also environmental information. And after giving us a report saying that everything has been done correctly, and then we start our internal process of processing the funding. But on the technical person, what happens is that the person gets involved in a lot of site visits, which can be very, very actually interesting, enlightening also, because you get to learn, you meet a lot of people, you go to different places, you go to many places in Africa, and also Canada, Australia, even in South America, looking at different commodities. And that's the very interesting part of the job. And another important part is to educate the team and other supporting units on technical matters. That will be in geology. The question on resources and reserves is one that comes up a lot when we're processing a financing. The credit team would like to know, we saw most people have seen something on measured, indicated, inferred. So a question will come up about how sure are you that those are those resources proven? That's the common question. And then you have to take them through what they have, if there is a resource, what proportion of that is measured and what's proven and what's probable. So your geology information still plays a very, very, very important role, and it's very important to have it. And also on mining, you get to answer a lot of questions on that. And if you don't know anything, there's something you're not sure about, you have to just go to the market, talk to a consultant or talk to someone that you know knows more than what you know. And lately, importantly, is educating people about commodities. We see a lot of commodities coming through, especially Africa mentioned in a lot of the strategic minerals. And you get to educate people if there is a request that comes through that, okay, this is what vanadium is used for, where you get it, and all that, who are the end users of that, and if you look in the bigger picture, and what is the demand for that. So the role is not only on site visits and only reviewing reports. You get to expand your knowledge and also impart that knowledge to other people. And that's where I always feel that as a geologist, you add, you are value add, and you're very important in the mining finance space. If a team has a geologist, that's always held highly. Thank you, Sarah. The next one, which is the next slide. And now that is about the role that I'm holding as a principal, as a transactor. As I said on the previous one, that the technical person, that principal, supports the mining team. And the role I'm holding now is actually that of structuring deals, using the support of a geologist when it comes to technical matters. I am a geologist, I'm there, but I've shifted more to the financial side. When I get a report, of course, I do read more because my interest, my background is geology, but I would also rely on the technical person. And in this role, we're also more client-facing and more like you lead the transaction more than anything, you project manage, because that role, when you're dealing with, when you're going through a financing, there are many legs to that. You've got consultants externally, you've got environmental people, you've got other teams that will have to be part of your transaction. So as a transactor, you're really playing a project management role. And our main function is to structure deals. More than anything, you get a request from a mining company, I'll say go fields. that they want to develop their project in South America, in Peru. And what you will do, you get allocated a team. And of course, you have a view on who you want to be in that team, depending on the skill set that is required in the project. And you'll get the bankable feasibility from Geoscience. And what will happen, you will talk to the technical manager. For me, as a geologist, I read it and you read it, and we discuss after that I have concerns in this part of the report. What is your view? And you'll give him his report. If we are happy with that, it gets signed off from our side. If there are still questions, we both engage with a representative from the company to address those questions and then take them through what is expected by the bank when it comes to a bankable feasibility study. And after the technicals have been completed, my next role is to review the financial model. These days, financial models are built by companies. They just submit them to the bank. There are very few projects where you'll see that you have to start or build a financial model from start. So if you're a geologist and you're thinking of coming to mining finance, that should not scare you. And in a team that you work with, you always have different skills. Someone else might be stronger in building models and you're stronger in your technicals. But what needs to be done, what you need to know is to be able to analyze financial statements or even read through the financial model. And it is a skill that you can develop whilst you're in the system. And after reviewing the model, seeing that, from mining, from their mine plan, the life of mine, and all the pricing, you look at a number of things. You look at the pricing, when they will start mining, first thing, when the ore will come through, and who will be the end user, and in what form. Will it be concentrate that they will be selling? So you need you use a lot of your technical information when you going through the information, because most of it is technical. Financial model has mostly technical inputs. And as a technical person, you understand them easy. So you're not losing anything. And what the next stage is then to develop a term sheet, which is a summary of terms really for the financing that you will be putting or will be implementing. That is the year, the type of facility. Is it a term loan or revolving facility? The tenor of that, and when they'll start repaying, do they have a repayment holiday, which is when the construction is taking place. So everything that you put even in the term sheet is really related to the mining, and actually the mining that will be done in the project itself. And when the term sheet is done, is agreed with the company, there's a point where you liaise with the risk team. ESG matters are important these days. So even before, as a bank, we look at a financing, we need to ensure that a company or that specific company complies with the regulatory framework that is in that country. So we go through that. There's a team that supports us as the lead in a transaction. That's another point that I had to deal with. And if you're a geologist, again, you've worked in the mines, you've worked with environmental people. So that one comes naturally, you know what's happening, it's easy to grasp that. And we also go to a lot of site visits as well. With the technical person, you have to be there as a lead for that transaction. And the next stage after the site visit, you come back and do the implementation of the transaction, which is then the admin part of writing and compiling the credit paper, presenting it to the bank's credit committee for approval. And once that has been approved, we go through the legal documentation, that is the drafting. Lawyers, external mostly, will draft the agreement. And your contribution in that case is just looking at commercial terms of that, ensuring that the pricing is in there, also the right tenors are in there. But that's an area where you learn as a geologist. You're not going to be a lawyer overnight, but it's also an area for you to say, okay, now at least I can engage in that legal part of when it comes to a financing or a mining company. I know how mining company financings are structured legally. And the next thing will be to close the facility, and you have to maintain the relationship. Talking on that client facing, it is your deal, it is your client. So customer or good client relations are very important. You have to look after your clients, and it is usually nice when you go sit with a client and you can talk mining, you can talk geology. So that's the benefit of being a mining or a geologist in a mining finance space. And we have to originate more deals, of course. You have to build relationships with other banks and other financiers. And also, I mean, now what is happening in South Africa is that most majors are really leaving. The truth is that. And there is a new breed that is emerging, actually not only in South Africa, even through Africa. We start tapping on that, trying to understand who is coming up with mining projects. And we try and support those people from start that if you're looking for financing, this is what you need to have from a bank's perspective if you're going to come to us. And we've seen quite a lot, especially in the coal space, a lot of juniors coming in there. In other commodities, the platinum, you don't see a lot. You see people looking at chrome from the tailings, PGM tailings. In the African space, you see a lot happening. We are watching and we go to the DRC. We've been to West Africa looking at new projects that are coming up. But as Sarah said, I mean, exploration has been very slow. And as South African banks, maybe Nedbank, we don't see a lot from African entrepreneurs or African companies. We see a lot of projects that are in Africa, but being funded or being mined by companies from Canada or Australia. So that's how most of our outside South African projects are funded within Nedbank. And what I can say, I mean, from the role that I have is that my experience in geology is not lost. I'm definitely using it. And I know that I'm an asset where I am because of the background and the experience that I've gathered over years. And what I've learned for me is the exposure to a diverse pool of commodities. You get to see a lot of that, and you get to understand what is happening in some corners of Africa where there's activity. You get to be exposed, I mean, to countries that most people are scared of, like the DRCs and all those places. You go to some strange places in Australia. And as a geologist, I guess it is in your DNA. You don't get scared or you're not terrified of those places. It's more like you back home. You don't work there, but you stay in the camp. You become part of the team for that weekend, looking at their boreholes or visiting their site. And then you come back and try to make things happen for them to build their project. I've had a few projects that were very exciting for me. For example, in Kenya, a mineral sands project. I think it was the first main mining project in Kenya, based resources. And I got involved in that one from beginning, from turning off the soil to the commercial completion of it. And through, I mean, the construction, and you get involved in the construction of their plant, you'll see them trying to move the soil to expose the layers that have mineral sands. And also you go to monitor actually the structure for the bank representing other banks in the syndicate, looking at their construction, what they are doing in the harbor and everything. And actually talking about understanding how other countries issue permits for various things that operations need. So I would say that, I mean, to the broader geology society, that moving to mining finance is not a loss to the society. It is actually a value add that will also open opportunities for you in other sectors or help you in growing further where you are. Thank you. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Bukiwe. I'll open the floor to any questions or comments from anyone. Just unmute yourself and fire away, either for Bukiwe or for Sarah in the previous talk. Bukiwe, I'll start with one which you may not be able to answer. But if we look at the banking sector in Johannesburg, roughly how many geologists are employed in that sector in Johannesburg alone? Any idea?
The specific number, Craig, no. But I know that in most major banks, there's definitely a minimum of 2 geologists. What has happened most now is that through the graduate programs, banks recruit geologists, but those ones in most cases do not go to mining finance. They get exposed to energy finance, they get exposed to infrastructure. So there's quite a number of them. I mean, at Nedbank, in my floor in debt finance, I think we have about 4 geologists. It's me in mining finance, another one in agriculture, another one in energy. So there's quite a number of them, definitely.
So the lesson for the youngsters, it's another aspect of a career path that can be very rewarding, even though you have to live in Johannesburg.
Yeah. And to add to that, though, I think if you want to be in mining finance, it's better to join after a few years once you've ticked a few boxes. You've been to exploration, you've been in resources and reserves management, you've done quite a number of years in the industry. That's when people can look at you and say, okay, we can trust your views and your opinion on mining industry.